Good morning, people. Going to do a little video here about this Crosley motor and another Crosley motor that we have, and maybe it'll help some of the new people, maybe it won't, but kind of bored today, so we're going to make a video. This engine here, I bought at Wasion a few years ago, and actually it ended up in the truck right here. And when I got it home from Wasion, took the bottom apart and plastic gauged it, and it was in pretty loose condition. So I ordered 20 over bearings and had the crank turned and put the bottom all back together and put it in the truck and drove it around town and went to a few car shows, had it up at Wasion. Well, then last winter I decided I was going to put new valve springs and seals and everything in it. So the engine was still in the truck, so I did that. I put new valve springs, new rotators, new seals, everything up on top. So it would be a pretty good engine. It always did have decent compression, so that was the plan. Well, when I was putting it back together, I got it back together, and I went to try and start it, and it would not fire. Wouldn't fire at all. Well, long story short, I eventually figured out that I had the cam in about probably 30 degrees out. And what was happening was the valves were opening as the piston was on its way up on the compression stroke, so there was no compression at all, and it wouldn't even fire. So anyway, I finally figured out what I'd done wrong with the camshaft. But then at that point, I'm thinking, okay, did I bend any valves in the process? So I pulled the engine back out, was going to go through it again. Well, in the meantime, Barry Seal advertised that he had an engine for sale, and this is the engine here that's in my truck now. Basically this is a brand new engine. Barry had a new old stock crank or block that had not been machined. It's got new pistons, new bearings, new rings. They found he or somebody found a forged steel crank in an army warehouse. They found a case of them, so it's got a forged crank in the bottom of it. So all in all, it's a new carburetor, new fuel pump. Basically, as you look at, about the only thing old on it is the intake and exhaust manifold. So I bought that from Barry and put that in the truck. So now I've got this other engine that was in the truck. So I got on the top end, put it all back together, and I feel like I feel like the camshaft's in there properly this time. There's an old, if I can show you this, I'll get over here. There's an old trick. Well, I can't get the cover off. There's an old trick. When you bring number one cylinder to top dead center, you've got the top dead center mark showing in the bell housing over here. Number one piston, top dead center. You've got the rotor in the distributor pointing toward the number one plug wire. You set the camshaft in so that the two lobes are pointing on number one cylinder. The two lobes are pointing to 2 o'clock and 10 o'clock. If you drop it in that case, you should be dead on. I really feel like that's how they did at the factory, because I've looked at too many camshafts in Crosley that do not have a timing mark on them. My guess is the mechanics, as they were building, they were obviously in a hurry. They dropped the camshaft in exactly the way I just described doing it, and then they took a center punch and marked it. Some of them they didn't mark at all. So I think that's a good way to get it around if you ever want to check on that. Number one cylinder on the camshaft, two lobes pointing to 10 and 2 o'clock, and you'll be right there. I also set all the clearances and everything on this engine. So it should be a really good engine. And we're going to put this engine in Jackson's Hot Shot. And the reason for that is when we got Jackson's Hot Shot home, we couldn't even get it running because it literally did not have enough compression to fire it. But we pumped oil into each cylinder and we kept playing with it until finally it would fire, and we cycled it up and down. Got it warm, let it cool, got it warm, let it cool. Get some of the rings sealing a little bit better. But it's always been a tremendously weak engine. So while I'm still able to do this, I'm going to put this engine in his hot shot so that he doesn't have to worry about it after I'm gone or too old to do it anymore. Now, I'm going to end this part of the video here, and then when I take off again, I'll be at the house. I'm at my shop now. I'll be at the house, and I'm going to show you the engine in his hot shot and reasons why it's a bad engine and reasons or ideas for you to look at if you ever get up against it on a Crosley engine, so you'll know what you're looking at. So I'll end this part now. We'll pick the rest of it up later as I get time. Goodbye for now. Okay, I went ahead and took the cam cover off so I can show you what I was talking about the position of the cam. Go down here. You'll see top dead center in the window there. You come up here. You'll have the distributor rotor pointing toward number 1, which is right there. So then all you do is you set the cam in, and you can see, we always say 10 and 2, it's actually 2 and 10, so you can see that you got those 2 lobes, and if you even drop that in a tooth off, it'll be very obvious. So it's pretty easy to hit 10 and 2 or 2 and 10, however you want to say it. Now, the other thing you want to remember, on the bottom end, there's match marks on the gears down there, and if you can hit them, that's great. If you don't find them, the thing to remember is the oil pump doesn't care the oil pump gear doesn't care where it's at. It's going to turn the oil pump. That's the important thing. The distributor gear, the only thing you want to watch on that, if you don't have marks, you're set up, just make sure when you put it all together that like the condenser's not crammed up on the other side from where I have it now, or it's up against the block or something so it doesn't turn. Beyond that, all you really got to do is get the camshaft dropped in the right place. Once you do that, all your timing is good to go. So I'll tag this on the rest of the video as we go along. Bye-bye.